I want to tell you the story of my childhood Nintendo 64 collection. It's taken a rather long time for me to get them all back. I, like a lot of kids back in the late 1990s and the early 2000s, sold my games whenever I was transitioning to a new console. And like a fool, I got rid of some of the best games, I think, of all time. Now, people who have been viewing this channel probably know that I am not really a fan of the Nintendo 64 after a long amount of years collecting for the system. However, while I think most N64 games are very bad, I think it does have some of the best games of all time. And I was fortunate enough to have some of those games when I was a kid. And I was thinking about why. Why did I buy the games that I did? Why did I ask for some of these games for Christmas? And the only real reason I can think of is because I was a Nintendo Power subscriber, so I would either buy or rent whatever video games they told me to get. I believe a lot of these are the result of Nintendo Power's indoctrination, although I think a couple are just what I was genuinely interested in at the time. So I want to start, speaking of some of the best games of all time, I want to start with the shooty games. The first one, I believe, being the best first-person shooter of all time, it is Perfect Dark. I feel like this is the encapsulation of the Matrix late 1990s, where we were looking into the future. We were going to believe that everything was going to be, on the one hand, a dystopia, but at least it was going to be a cool dystopia. But then things happened in the 2000s that we realized, no, actually, we're still going to have the dystopia, but it's going to be very boring. But at least I can go back to Perfect Dark and I can see a fantastic game that I believe improves on GoldenEye in every possible way, and I think has the most definitive, to me, single-player first-person shooter experience. That I love playing this game like every couple of years, and if you haven't played it yet, I implore you, I beseech you to try out Perfect Dark for the Nintendo 64. I don't think Nintendo Power had to tell me to buy a Star Wars game, so of course I had to get Rogue Squadron. And I went back into this game and I was blown away by just how amazing of a vehicle shooter this game is. You've got all of the different vehicles that you can pilot. I really wish that there was like an Empire version of this. Of course, there was TIE Fighter for the PC. I really wish there was like an Empire version of Rogue Squadron. I think it would be so cool if you could fly around in TIE Interceptors, TIE Defenders, TIE Advances. When is that gonna happen? I really want that to happen, EA. Make it happen. Factor 5 did this shit like 25 years ago. I think somebody could make a TIE Fighter version of Rogue Squadron, and I think I would pre-order it, I would buy it day one, I would buy all the DLC. Why hasn't that happened yet? The only game that I had a really hard time going back to out of my childhood N64 collection is Donkey Kong 64. I think I bought this, or I think I got this for Christmas back in like the year 2000 or whenever this came out, and I think the only reason I asked for it was so that I could get the memory expansion pack for the N64 that was packed in with this game, because now that I've played it in adulthood, it's just way too bloated. It is an action platformer, but really it's just you go around collecting things. But how did Rare feel that they could squeeze as much time out of the player as possible? Oh, not only do you collect things, but you really have to collect things like 5 times over, because you have to keep doing the same things over and over again with all the different characters that are in the game. And yes, the characters are unique. They're cool. I don't ever see myself ever beating this game, and I beat all of these games when I was a kid. The only one that I did not, and that I do not think I will ever beat, is Donkey Kong 64. Let's talk about sports. Racing is a sport in and of itself, I suppose. But let's talk about Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. I claimed in a previous video, and I maintained that claim, that Star Wars Episode 1 Racer is my favorite racing game of all time. Why? Because it combines Star Wars and F-Zero, which is a match made in heaven. And recently I found out that there was a sequel, a follow-up game released for the PlayStation 2. And I did not know this, and I have made the declaration that I'm not buying video games for like a year or two, but the first game that I will pick up when I start buying video games again will be the next Star Wars Episode 1 Racer game. Because this game for the N64, I know it came out for the Dreamcast and Windows, this is such an amazing racing game that you really have to try it. Is skateboarding cool again? I have no idea, but it was, I think, never cooler than back in the late 1990s. You had Tony Hawk and Bob Burnquist. You had all of these skateboarders going into the X Games. Everything was extreme. The 90s was all about using X instead of EX in the titles of things. But Tony Hawk's Pro Skater is actually pretty fun. I like all the different tricks you can do. I remember back when I was a kid, what I really liked to do was to figure out how to game the grinding system so you could like get your points up super high. What a game Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was. I haven't played 2 or 3 yet, and I know that there was a re-release of 1 and 2 on the Switch, if I'm remembering correctly. I haven't tried out those games yet, but I think one day I will. I don't know if I like or if I dislike the first Mario Party game for the Nintendo 64. And I say that because, yes, I like it because the mini games are very fun. But I dislike it because when you are on the board itself, for one, it's very boring because you have to wait for all of the other people to take their turns. And for two, you will just get rolled by this game. You will have like 5 stars, but oh no wait, you hit the block and then you have to switch your stars with someone else. So you end up having like 1 or at worst 0 stars. Oh, and then people can just steal your coins, and worst case scenario, they will just steal your stars. I really only ever played this against computers when I was a kid. I don't think I could ever play this game against real life people because I think we would probably end up coming to blows if we ever actually had to play Mario Party 1 in real life, because Nintendo's philosophy, we'll talk about this when we talk about Mario Kart in a later video, is to help out people in the back, to help out, you know, people in like the 4th through 8th slot in Mario Kart by giving them cool items. And in Mario Party, there's just so much randomness involved that you never know if you're going to get first place. Although, you know, if you play the minigames well, you'll be okay. An unappreciated game, I will say. I think popular opinion has turned against Yoshis Story. I still think it's a great game. I played it recently after I picked it up and pretty much completed my N64 collection. I think it's still so cute. I think the graphics work really well with the N64 because they're not poorly aged 3D polygons. I think Yoshis Story was a foundation for a lot of the Yoshi-based games that we received subsequently. And so I'm glad that it came out. I'm glad that I asked for this for Christmas. The first 2 games that I asked for the Nintendo 64 in the winter of 1998 were The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time and Yoshi's Story. Ocarina of Time, yes, it is a very good game. I'm not going to say anything more. I can't add anything more about Ocarina of Time, which has been discussed to death on this platform. So instead, what I want to talk about is Majora's Mask, which, much like Perfect Dark, is, I think, better than GoldenEye. Majora's Mask is not only better than the Ocarina of Time in virtually every possible way. I think that Majora's Mask is the greatest game of all time. It is the one game that I will play pretty much once a year or so. I think the story is incredible. I think what they did with taking all the assets from Ocarina of Time and making them into a brand new game in basically a year is a triumph. I think it is the first ever game that actually has an emotional core that I ever resonated with. I think that Majora's Mask, we don't talk about Majora's Mask. I am the Majora's Mask hipster in that back in the year 2000, when this thing came out, I was all about this game, and I have been all about this game for the last 20 years, and I feel like it's only very recently that people have started talking about Majora's Mask, but I was there from day one. I hope this has been either entertaining or informational for you. I hope at the very least that there are people like me out there who prefer Majora's Mask over Ocarina of Time, who enjoy Perfect Dark more than GoldenEye. There are a few of us out there, and I hope that this video at least gave you some ideas for some N64 games that you should pick up, or hopefully it helped you unlock some memories. about the late 1990s and the early 2000s. That's really what I really want to do for the next video, where we talk about the games I did not have as a kid, but I picked up subsequently. I've been your man out of Japan, Jay Contra. Thanks for watching, and mahalo.